So the topic of today's discussion is essentially making friends as an adult. So this came about when you talked about something a little while ago. I think it was about a year ago, actually, you spoke about this, about the concept of, because I was asking you, I think, in a conversation about your friendships, like your social circles and stuff. Like as a digital nomad and stuff, how do you maintain like friendships and social circles and whatnot? And you mentioned this idea of sort of social engineering, I think you called it.
Yeah.
And that's like that idea kind of got me interested, because the example you used was like for example, you running an entrepreneurial workshop, and then you just have a bunch of people there straight away that you meet. Like you meet more people in one evening than you would say like in a month without doing that.
Yeah.
So I wanted to address this, and I wanted to address it and talk about this from the perspective and maybe help some people who maybe are not socially just gifted, not socially natural, because I'm certainly not. And
yeah, neither am I. I'm like totally not. So the reason I got interested in all this is because I'm so unsocial naturally.
Right.
And it is something that I had to develop deliberately. I have to make a deliberate effort. But what I realized, and I think this is where social engineering, which sounds almost a bit sinister.
It does a bit, doesn't it? It's like from a cultural perspective. It seems a bit like like 1984 or something.
Yeah. It sounds sinister, but I'll give some examples to show what I mean. But I think what's interesting about it is that most of us, or it seems to me that most of us kind of stumble into most of our relationships. So it's like the friends you have are just the people you happen to work with. And even with romantic relationships, most of us like just stumble into these situations, so we have very little control over it. And well, as we've talked about before, I think it's really important that you surround yourself with the right kind of people. Right? It's a huge drain on your life if you are in like in toxic or generally just not constructive type of relationships, right? With whether it's family, friends, etc. And so social engineering is the idea that, hey, you can actually take charge here. And I would say that, or at least the way I've experienced it, the main thing for me that is kind of the hack here is you can almost think it like you want to create like a magnetic pull towards you. So you're not like going out trying to introduce yourself. Oh, can I join this group? Can I, Yeah. It's like you're making people come to you. And let me tell you the best story of social engineering I've ever heard. Unfortunately, I didn't do this. I'm not nearly that cool, right? But I met this guy. So I was in Thailand years ago and just hanging out and met this guy, who was also an entrepreneur. And somehow we struck up a conversation with this guy, and he ended up telling us this story of when he was in, I think it might have been Bulgaria or somewhere in Eastern Europe, where he and a friend were there, and they were in this town, and they noticed that every evening, or I don't know if it was every evening or only the weekends, but never mind. Let's just say every evening, mostly the young people would come out to the town square, and there was this guy with a cart who was selling like sunflower seeds or something like that. And everyone would buy like these little baggies of sunflower seeds and then sit around and eat sunflower seeds and chat and whatnot, people watch, So they saw this is happening here. And so what they did is the next day they went there early and intercepted the guy with the cart and were like, listen, we're going to buy out your whole cart and you just hand these things out for free today. And if someone asks you, just point to us and says, yeah, these guys, it's on them, right? And if you think about it, I mean, it's like sunflower seeds. It probably didn't even cost them that much, right? This is not like a rich person move. It's really
it's not
simple.
A baller move, is it?
Yeah, it's really simple. And so they didn't just sat there, and everybody who came up to the cart was like, what's going on? And got pointed towards them. Everybody was delighted. And they were also, the new foreigners in town and whatnot. And basically, they just made friends with everyone. Right? Because everyone came up to them to say thank you and introduce themselves and ask, oh, what do you do? Where are you from? And so on. And they got invited back to everyone's house to have dinner and, meet the family and all this kind of stuff, right?
They were at a wedding that day.
Yeah, pretty much. They were invited to a bunch of weddings probably. So, and I just thought, wow, imagine how much effort it would take because again, if you think of it as magnet, right? It's like you're the magnet, people come to you. If you don't have that effect, and you have to go out and somehow strike up a conversation with all these people, how long does it take before you make that many friends, right? How much effort does that take?
Honestly.
So that's the best example of this I know. It's just so brilliant, right? and so yeah, the kind of thing. So that's the kind of thing I've always tried to construct in order to build my social circle. Is basically the two things. You can kind of combine two things, right? You can go to meetups of any kind that are about things that you're interested in. And you can go to, meetup.com or whatever. There's lots of ways to find these, where you'll find people meeting up for doing, whatever, acro yoga in the park, or meditation on Saturday morning, or, entrepreneurs for lunch, or whatever. You can do topic plus thing, you'll find it, right?
Meetup.org is really good for that.
.org, is it? Yeah. Yeah. So you can find such meetups, and it's very useful to go to something like that, because you're automatically meeting people who are into the same kind of stuff as you. Because obviously, if you go to the morning meditation in the park, it's a different crowd than the entrepreneurs meetup at Saturday evening at the bar, right?
Yeah.
So you can choose your crowd, and that's really powerful. But what's even more powerful is if you are the organizer of the thing. Now, usually you have to do you have to get the ball rolling a little bit. It kind of depends on how you do it, but. Because, if you have a couple of friends where you can say, hey, on Saturday we go to the park to meditate, and, a couple of people already say yes to it, and you post it somewhere and they invite their friends, and so on, before you know it, there's like a dozen people there, right?
Yeah.
And if you're the person who organized the thing, then you have that magnet effect.
Yes.
And so this is something you can do. And one of the things I've done there is I also very much believe in just like leaning into your strengths, right? So what do I like to teach? So I like to basically run workshops, and that you go to a co-working space and you're just like, listen, I can give a presentation on whatever, how we did a product launch, whatever, something that the people in the co-working space are interested in, right? And so I did that in Bali, for example. I just went to every co-working space, was like, hey, do you want me to speak here? And then some of them say yes. And that gives you that exposure. You give the workshop, and you'll just immediately have loads of people come up to you and be like, oh, I'm hosting this dinner, or won't you come along, and so on, right? And it's just like you go from zero to too many people to stay in touch with in no time at all doing this. So that's basically how I've thought about it, is that I try to put myself in this position where people come to me. And I found it surprisingly easy, to be honest.
Yeah. So it's reversing it's reversing it. So when say if a person's socially, a little socially awkward or anxious, I often find, because in my own coaching practice, I work with guys who are mostly, pretty socially anxious, by their own admission, shy, socially awkward. And the way they frame the whole thing of the social life is, I want something and I'm not getting it. Mm-hmm. If only I had the thing, people's approval, if only I had a friend, etc. And it's like a taking kind of vibe, right? Mm-hmm. And what you're describing is you're reversing it. Mm-hmm. So it's like, rather than being the value taker, you're providing value, right? Mm-hmm. So the sunflower seed example as well. Mm-hmm. These guys just found a way to provide mass value to a shed load of people in the course of an afternoon. And you also did the same thing. You provide value. So it's like what I'm trying to do is take the facets of why that works and see exactly how. Mm-hmm. So obviously familiarity and similarity. So you gave that talk in the right context. Yeah. So that people, the right people got the right amount of value from it. So value is really important. Mm-hmm. But I'm also wondering how much status or perceived status is important there as well.
I think I think that's probably one of the reasons why you have like this magnetic effect, right? It's like you're put in a context where you're kind of the leader in that context in a way. Yeah. Yeah.
So it's like in that context, you deliver a presentation as to how you did a product launch. Mm-hmm. You have some authority because of your experiences and your success entrepreneurially, and straight away you've elevated yourself in a status kind of way. Mm-hmm. You've got some struggling entrepreneurs. This person's a successful entrepreneur. Mm-hmm. It's like, holy shit, I could learn a lot from that person. I have a reason to interact with that person, and I want to.
Yeah, yeah. But it can also be on a much, in a way, like, yes, of course, if I talk to entrepreneurs who are only starting out and they see me as someone who's already made it, so to speak, then of course that puts me in a position of authority. But it could also be the same in a much simpler way. Yeah, if you just say, look, we're going to do a meditation meetup, and I'm just the guy who organizes it, and maybe all I do is I tell people, come here at this time, and then I put on, a guided meditation, and that's it. But still, I'm the person who organized it. It's going to be much easier for me to interact with people, or basically I'll have people come to me much more so than if you join someone else's meditation meetup. Then you have to be proactive again in connecting with the people there, right? So even without, like, you don't need like massive authority or status. Just being the organizer gives you that. And the other thing is, I think that also it has this great filtering effect, because for me, if I think of examples, what could I do, right? Obviously, yeah, I can give a workshop to entrepreneurs. Something like acro yoga in the park, or just even like, I could bring some people together and be like, I'm going to teach you some self-defense stuff, or who wants to learn a bit of like basic medieval sword fighting, It's like, maybe you're listening to thinking, wow, that's super lame, Shane. I can't believe that you want to do such lame things. But that's exactly the point. Is like, it attracts a certain kind of person. It attracts people who are, who shows up for let's do medieval sword fighting in the park? It's like a certain kind of weirdo that happens to be the same kind of weirdo I am,
Yeah, and those are the people that you want to knock around with.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like you wouldn't go to a bar on a Saturday night and be like, so guys, it's nice to meet you. I do medieval sword fighting. Who's interested?
Yeah, yeah. And this is, I think this is also actually a good point, because for me, like the default socializing things that we have in our culture really don't work for me. I hate bars and clubs and cocktail parties.
You have tried this too,
and
right?
I have tried it.
So
yes.
you're not just saying it from a distance.
No, I have tried this, and I kind of forced myself to learn. It was one of those things, like I wanted to prove to myself that I can do it. Yes, I can go to a bar and I can go up to the girl and say, hey, strike up a conversation. God damn it. And I can even, if I do it often enough, I can get a few numbers and stuff, I forced myself to do that. And then I was like, okay, I can do it. Can I never do this again, please?
Look, I can do it. No, just I've proven it, so I can never do it again.
Yeah.